Are you currently holding a spoon, perhaps dipping into a bowl of refreshing vanilla or strawberry ice cream? If you are, put it down right now, or at least brace yourself, because that sweet, aromatic flavor you are so innocently enjoying might actually be coming from the rear end of a beaver. No, I am not joking, and I am not using a metaphor. In the most literal biological sense possible, you could be feasting on the secretions from the anal glands of a large, semi-aquatic rodent. Welcome to the world of food manufacturing, a place where the truth is not only bitter, but sometimes downright nauseating. You probably think of yourself as a savvy consumer, someone who reads labels and avoids chemicals. I hate to break it to you, but you are adorably naive. Food scientists are linguistic wizards. They know exactly how to hide the most grotesque ingredients under beautiful names like natural flavoring or glazing agent. Today, I am here to ruin your childhood, destroy your appetite, and make you look at your refrigerator with the suspicion of a homicide detective. Let us start by dissecting that innocent scoop of vanilla ice cream. There's a substance called castoreum. In the perfume and food industry, it is considered the holy grail of scents. It provides a rich, leathery vanilla note, sometimes with hints of raspberry. But castoreum is not extracted from a bean or a flower. It is a yellowish, sticky goo secreted from the castor sacs of the North American beaver. And where are these magical sacs located? They're right between the pelvis and the base of the tail, intimately close to the animal's anal sphincter. Basically, beavers use this substance, mixed with urine, to mark their territory. They spray this butt perfume on rocks and trees to tell the rest of the forest that this real estate is taken. And then humans, the apex predators with infinite curiosity, came along, sniffed it, and thought, wow, this animal's backside smells delicious. Maybe we should put it in candy for children. Who was the first person to have that idea? History does not record his name. Probably because he was too embarrassed, or perhaps he was too busy sniffing beavers. The scariest part is that the FDA lists castoreum as generally recognized as safe. This allows manufacturers to list it on the package simply as natural flavoring. So, if you see those words on a carton of ice cream, a fruit-flavored yogurt, or chewing gum, there's a non-zero chance you are technically French kissing a beaver. Of course, milking a beaver for its anal secretions is expensive and difficult, so it's less common now than it used to be, but it still exists, especially in high-end products where synthetic chemicals are frowned upon. If eating beaver anal glands was not enough to make you lose your lunch, let me introduce you to another delight: the vibrant colors in your candy bowl. Do you love red gummy bears, strawberry milkshakes, or perhaps that bright red lipstick you or your girlfriend uses? That red color, known in the industry as E120 or carmine or carminic acid, sounds very scientific and clean, but in reality, to get that beautiful ruby red hue, we have to commit a massacre. Carmine is made from the dried bodies of the cochineal beetle. This is a parasitic bug that lives on cactus plants in South America, looking like little specks of white dust. To harvest the color, workers collect millions of female beetles, because only the females produce the pigment. They dry them out in the scorching sun until they shrivel up like tiny Egyptian mummies. Then they crush them into a fine powder and boil them to extract that deep red dye. It takes about 70,000 dead bugs to produce just 1 pound of dye. Picture this. You are sitting in a nice cafe, ordering a slice of red velvet cake and a strawberry frappuccino. You take a bite, feeling the sweetness melt on your tongue, but in reality, you're chewing on the crushed carcasses of thousands of insects. A few years ago, Starbucks faced a massive scandal when they were caught using these beetles to color their strawberry drinks. Under pressure from vegans who did not want to drink insect juice, they switched to tomato-based lycopene. But do not celebrate yet. Countless other food companies still use it. Why? Because it's stable, it's cheap, and most importantly, they can legally call it natural. But the insect story doesn't end there. Let us talk about something more wholesome, something we consider a gift from nature: honey. We praise honey as a superfood, a miracle elixir.
But the production process of honey, if described with biological accuracy, would make you think twice before spreading it on your toast tomorrow morning. You might think bees fly out, use little buckets to collect nectar, and bring it home to pour into jars. Absolutely not. The bee sucks nectar into a separate stomach, called a honey stomach. Inside, enzymes begin to break down the nectar. After flying back to the hive, this worker bee will regurgitate the mixture into the mouth of another bee. The second bee swallows it, vomits it back up, and passes it to a third bee. This process repeats over and over until the water content evaporates. Finally, the last bee vomits the concentrated goo into the honeycomb. To put it bluntly, and without any sugarcoating, honey is bee vomit. You are eating something that has been inside the stomachs and mouths of dozens of insects before it reached your lips. It is a communal vomit party that somehow tastes delicious. But wait, where are the fans of jelly beans or those shiny chocolate-covered nuts? Have you ever wondered why their outer shell is so hard, crisp, and glossy like a mirror? That is thanks to a coating called shellac, and its origin is just as charming as honey. Shellac is a resin secreted by the female lac bug when she colonizes trees in the forests of India and Thailand. The bug sucks tree sap and then sweats out a sticky substance to coat her body, creating a tunnel to live in and protect her eggs. Humans harvest this by scraping the crusty branches, which are covered in bug secretions and often bug parts, then melting and filtering it. So, that sweet, crunchy shell on your candy is essentially bug sweat, or rather, a bug's house construction material. Interestingly, shellac is the exact same substance used to polish wood furniture and give it that high-gloss finish. It is also used in heavy-duty nail polish. Yes, you are eating the same material that is coating your dining table. It is hard, it is shiny, and it is completely indigestible. When you eat a jelly bean, you are basically eating a bug wrapped in wood varnish. If you're thinking, fine, I will stay away from sweets, I'll just stick to savory food to be safe, then I have bad news for you. The world of savory food is just as much of a scam. Let us talk about Parmesan cheese. Not the expensive blocks you buy from an Italian deli, but that convenient shaker of grated cheese you buy at the supermarket to sprinkle on your spaghetti or pizza. Have you ever wondered why that powdered cheese can sit in your fridge for months without clumping together, always remaining perfectly fluffy? The secret lies in an ingredient called cellulose. It sounds like a healthy fiber, and technically it is plant fiber, but the source is the problem. In the food industry, the cheapest and most common source of cellulose is wood pulp. Yes, sawdust. It is the stuff that flies into the air when you cut lumber to build a house. Manufacturers add wood pulp to grated cheese to absorb moisture and prevent the cheese particles from sticking together. The FDA allows a certain percentage of wood pulp in food, and companies take full advantage of this. Some cheap brands of grated cheese have been found to contain more wood fiber than actual cheese. Technically, it is not toxic. Your body cannot digest it. It just passes right through you. But emotionally, the fact that you're sprinkling sawdust onto your romantic candlelight dinner is a slap in the face of culinary arts. Next time you compliment the pizza for being extra crispy, ask yourself if that crunch is coming from the crust or from a eucalyptus tree. So, we've gone through a terrifying appetizer menu. From beaver butt ice cream, beetle blood candy, vomit honey, and bug sweat jelly beans to sawdust cheese. Do you feel like your world is crumbling yet? Do not despair, because these are just the additives. The real shocks are yet to come. We are about to travel back in time to see how our ancestors were crazy enough to turn garbage into delicacies and medicine into condiments. Can you believe that the lobster, the symbol of luxury dining, was once considered the cockroach of the sea, food fit only for prisoners and pigs? Can you believe that ketchup was originally sold as a medicine to cure diarrhea and baldness? And even crazier, one of the most famous sodas in the world has its roots in Nazi Germany.
Hold on to your stomach, take a deep breath, and maybe grab a glass of water, although I cannot guarantee the water is safe either. We are moving to part 2, the insane history of national dishes. This is where the line between trash and treasure is just a matter of marketing. If part 1 made you question the ingredients label, part 2 is about to make you question history books and the sanity of our ancestors. We are leaving the laboratory and entering the time machine. Welcome to the era where garbage was gold and breakfast was a medical prescription for your libido. Let's talk about status. Nothing screams, "I have made it in life," quite like sitting in a fancy restaurant wearing a bib and cracking open a bright red lobster. It is the symbol of luxury, of wealth, of romantic dates that cost half a paycheck. But if you could travel back to 17th century New England and tell a colonist that you paid $50 for a lobster, they would look at you like you were mentally deranged. Back then, lobsters were not a delicacy. They were literally the cockroaches of the sea. They were so abundant that they washed up on the shores in piles up to 2 feet high. People tripped over them. And because they are bottom feeders, scavengers that eat dead fish and rot, they were considered dirty. Eating lobster was a mark of poverty and degradation. If you saw lobster shells in someone's trash, you knew they were struggling. It got so bad that lobster was used as fertilizer for crops and bait for fish hooks. But here's the kicker. It was the primary food source for prisoners and indentured servants. It was the Spam of the colonial era. In fact, there's a historical record of servants in Massachusetts revolting and forcing their masters to sign a contract promising not to feed them lobster more than 3 times a week. Just imagine that. "Please, sir, give us dry bread, anything but this delicious buttered crustacean." Today, we view it as a treat. Back then, it was considered cruel and unusual punishment. Now let's move from the main course to the condiment, ketchup. It is the lifeblood of fast food. You dip your fries in it, you slather your burgers with it. But in the 1830s, you would not find ketchup in the pantry. You would find it in the medicine cabinet. In 1834, an Ohio physician named Dr. John Cook Bennett declared that tomatoes could cure diarrhea, indigestion, jaundice, and rheumatism. He even claimed they could prevent baldness. He took this tomato concentrate, turned it into a pill, and sold it as tomato extract. For a brief period in American history, there was a literal ketchup war between rival snake oil salesmen trying to peddle their own brand of tomato pills to cure everything from the common cold to cholera. Imagine going to your doctor today complaining of a stomachache and he prescribes you a bottle of Heinz 57. It sounds ridiculous, but for a solid decade, people believed they were eating medicine, not a sugary sauce. Speaking of medicine and misconceptions, let's talk about the most important meal of the day, breakfast. Specifically, cornflakes and graham crackers. You probably eat them because they're quick, convenient, or because the tiger on the box told you they're great. But the original inventors of these snacks would be horrified if they saw you enjoying them. Reverend Sylvester Graham, the inventor of the graham cracker in 1829, was a bit of a fanatic. He believed a diet of meat, fat, and spices made people, how do I put this politely, too frisky. He thought rich food inflamed sexual desire, leading to the terrible sin of self-pleasure. So he invented a cracker made of unbleached flour with no sugar and no flavor, specifically to kill your libido. It was an anti-aphrodisiac. The graham cracker was designed to be so boring that you would stop thinking about sex and start thinking about, well, nothing. And he wasn't alone. Decades later, Dr. Harvey Kellogg, the man behind the cereal empire, had similar ideas. Kellogg was a deeply religious man who ran a sanitarium. He believed that masturbation was the root of all evil and sickness. To combat this plague, he developed a diet of incredibly bland foods to suppress the passions of the youth. Thus, cornflakes were born. Originally, they were not the sugary frosted flakes we know today. They were essentially dry, tasteless corn scabs. Kellogg's vision was a world where teenagers would wake up, eat a bowl of beige sadness, and go about their day with zero hormonal urges.
The irony is, today we coat them in sugar and chocolate, turning the ultimate anti-sin food into a dopamine bomb. If Dr. Kellogg could see Tony the tiger today, he would probably have a heart attack. But if you think suppression of desire is a weird origin story, let's end this part with a drink born from the darkest regime in human history: Fanta. That bright orange, fun, bubbly soda you see at every birthday party? It is the direct child of Nazi Germany. Here is the situation. It is the 1940s. World War II is raging. Coca-Cola Deutschland was incredibly popular, but due to trade embargoes by the Allies, the German factory could no longer import the secret syrup from the United States. Max Keith, the head of Coca-Cola in Germany, was a businessman who did not want to shut down his factories just because of a little thing like a world war. He decided to create a new drink using whatever leftovers were available in wartime Germany. And what did they have? Garbage. Specifically, apple fiber left over from cider presses and whey, the watery byproduct of cheese making. It was literally a drink made of industrial scraps. They needed a name, so Keith told his team to use their imagination, in German, Fantasie. One salesman shouted, "Fanta," and the name stuck. So, while American GIs were drinking Coke, German soldiers and civilians were drinking Fanta. It became the unofficial beverage of the Third Reich, not because they loved the taste of cheese water and apple skins, but because it was the only thing available to drink besides water. After the war, Coca-Cola reclaimed the factory, took the Fanta brand, reformulated it with oranges, thank God, and introduced it to the world. But every time you crack open that orange can, remember, it exists because a businessman in Nazi Germany refused to stop making money. We have covered beaver butts, crushed beetles, prison lobsters, anti-sex crackers, and Nazi soda. You might be thinking, surely it cannot get any weirder. Oh, my sweet summer child, we haven't even touched on the chemistry yet. In the final part, we are going to explore the things that are actively trying to kill you while you eat them. We will talk about a spice in your kitchen that can cause hallucinations, a fruit that digests your tongue while you eat it, and why carrots are living a lie. Are you ready to have your mind blown one last time? We have survived the biological horrors of Part 1 and the historical madness of Part 2. You now know that your vanilla ice cream might have a beaver's signature on it and your Fanta has a dark, fascist past. But surely the fresh produce section is safe, right? Surely the spices in your cabinet are just innocent flavor dust? Wrong. Welcome to Part 3, the finale, where we discover that your kitchen is not a sanctuary of nourishment. It is a chemistry lab filled with lies, drugs, and edible weapons. Let's start with a spice that is probably sitting in your pantry right now looking totally harmless next to the cinnamon: nutmeg. You sprinkle it on eggnog, you put it in pumpkin pies, and it smells like Christmas. But did you know that nutmeg is a potent hallucinogenic drug? I'm not talking about a mild buzz, I'm talking about a full-blown, terrifying psychotropic trip. Nutmeg contains a compound called myristicin. In small amounts, it just adds a nice warm flavor. But if you ingest 2 to 3 teaspoons of ground nutmeg, which I strongly advise you not to do, it acts like a deliriant. It hits your system like a freight train. People who have tried it report hallucinations, extreme nausea, heart palpitations, and a sense of impending doom that can last for days. Historically, people have used nutmeg as a cheap substitute for marijuana or stronger psychedelics when they couldn't get the real thing. Malcolm X even wrote in his autobiography about using nutmeg in prison to get high. But unlike other recreational drugs, the nutmeg high is universally described as a nightmare. It feels like you have the flu, you're dizzy, and you think you're going to die. So the next time you enjoy a holiday latte, just remember, the difference between a festive treat and a trip to the emergency room is just a couple of spoonfuls. Speaking of food that attacks you, let's talk about the pineapple. Have you ever eaten a lot of fresh pineapple and felt your tongue getting sore, scratchy, or even bleeding a little? You probably thought it was just the acidity. It's not. The truth is much metal. Pineapple contains an enzyme called bromelain.
This enzyme is so powerful that it is used as a meat tenderizer in industrial cooking. It breaks down protein chains.
And what is your tongue made of? You guessed it, meat. When you eat a pineapple, the pineapple is literally eating you back. It is dissolving the protective mucus lining of your mouth and digesting the proteins in your tongue and cheeks. It is the only food that fights for its life while you chew it. If you were to fall into a vat of pure bromelain, you would eventually turn into a soup. So that stinging sensation, that is the feeling of being digested alive, one bite at a time. Bon appetit. Now, let's wash that down with some Japanese cuisine. You are at a sushi bar, and you mix that green paste into your soy sauce for that spicy kick that clears your sinuses. You call it wasabi. The menu calls it wasabi, but I am willing to bet my entire spice rack that you have never eaten real wasabi in your life. Real wasabi comes from the stem of the Wasabia japonica plant. It is notoriously difficult to grow. It needs running water, shade, and a very specific temperature. It is one of the most expensive crops in the world, costing over $100 per pound. Furthermore, once you grate real wasabi, the flavor evaporates within 15 minutes. So, what is that green glob on your plate? It is just ordinary horseradish mixed with strong mustard and dyed green with food coloring, possibly that same beetle dye we talked about earlier, or something synthetic. Horseradish is cheap, grows anywhere, and burns your nose just like the real thing. Real wasabi is more herbal, sweeter, and smoother, but 99% of the wasabi sold in supermarkets and restaurants outside of high-end Japanese dining is a complete lie. You have been crying over a painted root vegetable. If you think fake wasabi is a betrayal, wait until you hear about carrots. Close your eyes and picture a carrot. It is orange, right? Bugs Bunny eats orange carrots. Snowmen have orange noses. But nature did not intend for carrots to be orange. For thousands of years, carrots were purple, white, or yellow. They were thin and looked like gnarly roots. Then came the Dutch. In the 17th century, the Dutch were the masters of agriculture. They also happened to be fiercely patriotic. Their royal family was the House of Orange-Nassau. To honor William of Orange and the Dutch independence movement, patriotic farmers began selectively breeding a mutant strain of carrot that had a high beta-carotene content, which made it bright orange. They succeeded. The orange carrot became the dominant variety because it was sweeter and fleshier, but mostly because it was a political statement. The purple and yellow varieties were pushed aside. So, every time you crunch into a carrot stick, you are not just eating a vegetable, you are consuming 17th century Dutch political propaganda. Finally, let's end our journey with the world's most popular snack, the potato chip. We love them. They're crispy, salty, and addictive. But they were not created out of love. They were created out of pure, unadulterated spite. The year was 1853 in Saratoga Springs, New York. A chef named George Crumb was working at a fancy resort. One day, a wealthy customer, rumored to be Cornelius Vanderbilt, kept sending his fried potatoes back to the kitchen. He complained they were too thick and too soggy. George Crumb was furious. He had a temper. To teach this picky customer a lesson, he decided to make the potatoes inedible. He sliced them paper thin, so thin they could not be eaten with a fork. He fried them until they were rock hard and covered them in an obscene amount of salt. He sent them out to the table, expecting the customer to be insulted. Instead, the customer took a bite and loved them. He ordered more. Other guests saw them and wanted some too. Saratoga chips became an instant hit. The snack that generates billions of dollars today was invented because a chef wanted to be a jerk to a customer. It is the most delicious act of passive-aggressive revenge in history. And there you have it. The food on your plate is a battlefield. It is full of secretions from beaver butts, crushed bugs, vomit from bees, sawdust from trees, hallucinogenic spices, flesh-eating enzymes, political colors, and revenge-fueled potatoes. The next time you sit down for a meal, look at your food and give it a little nod of respect, because now you know the dark, dirty, and hilarious secrets it has been hiding. Ignorance might be bliss,
But knowledge? Knowledge tastes like chicken, or maybe like a frog, depending on who you ask. If you enjoyed having your appetite ruined and your mind expanded, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which fact made you want to throw up the most. Until next time, stay hungry, but maybe stay suspicious.